Before hitting record on today's show, I was going through my mind and trying to figure out the proper name for our Tuesday's shows, where we have different guests on to talk about the football team. Beat Writer Tuesday came to mind, and that didn't sit right with me. But you know what I loved? Expert Tuesday. Expert Tuesday. And today's expert is Steven Means from Cleveland.com. As him and I recap this weekend's game, humiliation of the Hoosiers and Bloomington, Indiana, and go around and talk about some things we have witnessed this year from different players on the football team.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. We are here on a Tuesday, October 26th in the year 2021, and we are here with Steven Means from Cleveland.com. Him and I were just talking about the construction that he hit while driving to and from Indiana over the weekend, and that may have been the only bad part of his weekend as Ohio State, as he witnessed, humiliated the Hoosiers in Bloomington, Indiana. Steven, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, that construction's – I'm an impatient driver, so It probably wasn't as bad as I'm making it out to be. But, yeah, I don't like sitting in my car. I don't like driving as is, so, yeah. But, yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game for one side, I'll say that much.
No, man, that construction, like I mentioned earlier, it is definitely something that if you're just driving through and you're trying to go in and out like you were for the game – it's not fun. It's not fun at all. Nothing enjoyable about sitting in traffic. Those cones have probably been there since 1985, and they just don't move at all. Traffic it's ridiculous, man. I don't get it at all.
Yeah. Construction, man. That's how fun this game. Anyway, that's how interesting the game was. We're talking about construction for the last 4 or 5 minutes here. That should tell you everything you need to know about this Ohio State Indiana game.
Yeah, it was from the beginning of the game, we all knew Ohio State should take control early and dominate. That's what they did. Outside of the opening drive for the Hoosiers, that was the only success they had on offense. Outside of that, it was just straight domination. What were some things that you took away maybe in the moment, what's some things you thought in the moment while the game was going on about how the game was being played?
Yeah, the offense is what it is. They're leading the nation in points per game and total yards per game. So those two things, as interesting as it was to watch a team, my outrageous prediction was Ohio State was going to score 45 points in the first half, and then what do you know? They get to 44. So that's cool and all that. I think the most intriguing thing about this team is going to be the defense for the next 5 weeks here, and how much of what we see every week is real, given what the level of offense they're going to play in the Big Ten. Indiana, obviously, everybody seems to be glued to a hospital bed there and not necessarily on the field. Michael Penix didn't play. Jack Tuttle looked like he was going to die at one point out there. I mean, you're down to your walk-on quarterback, and so how much of that can you really take? But it did give me some 2019 vibes when, in just the way that they kind of operated, where the defense was setting up a young quarterback with short fields consistently, and then the short fields that quarterback takes advantage of them, and they score touchdowns. That's what Justin Fields and Chase Young lived off of in 2019. There's no Chase Young on this defense, but Zach Harrison had a pretty good day. Tyreek Smith had a pretty good day. That defensive line as a whole had a pretty good day. And then obviously every single week, C.J. Stroud looks more and more like a Heisman Trophy candidate. So that's what I took from this game. Is it gave me 2019 vibes, but I know this is not a 2019 defense. But what type of defense is it?
What kind of defense do you think it is? Let's start there since you brought it up.
Yeah, I think, is it enough? I think that's my only question here. It doesn't have to be a dominant defense either. This offense is averaging 550 yards, 50 points a week. It doesn't have to be an awesome defense. I think it needs to be enough. It needs to be a defense where when you play a good team, it gives up 21 points at the most. And I do think with what we're seeing now, they can get there. They found the guys who should be playing football for them. At the defensive line, you've got 6 guys on the interior led by Haskell Garrett. On the edge, you've got Tyreek Smith, you've got Zach Harrison, you've got the freshman JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. Talik Williams is coming along on the interior as well. Linebackers, it's Cody Simon, Taraja Mitchell, Steele Chambers, and Tommy Eichenberg at this point. But I think Steele Chambers might be their best linebacker, which is interesting because he was a running back 6 months ago. And then obviously in the back 7, it's led by Denzel Burke, a true freshman who was not playing cornerback until he got here until January. And now he might be a freshman All-American, but we'll see here. So who's going to play. And every week it's about, can it work? And I think every week they answer that question with a yes, a little bit more confidently, while this offense just keeps rolling.
I was thinking about Denzel Burke here. Now, I was looking ahead to the Purdue game, and I don't know how you think about this. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. One thing Ohio State does, they keep Banks on one side, Burke on the other. And I'm curious if you think it'd be wise in that game alone to have Denzel Burke mirror and follow David Bell all over the field when they play Purdue, because he is that good of a receiver.
I mean, it would be fun to watch, but I don't know many college football teams who do that.
Right.
It's just not something you see. They didn't make Jeff Okudah do it. They didn't make Denzel Ward do it. They didn't make Marshawn Lattimore do it. So I would answer no, because it is 2 different jobs. Being boundary and being field corner are very different jobs. And Denzel Burke has been good. I don't know if I'm going to follow a receiver around good yet. That's just not where he is. And I think there are some other things that this Ohio State defense can do to maybe, you're not going to stop David Bell, but at least, contain it a little bit more. You can get some pressure from defensive ends, but then also in the name of keeping guys fresh, you do some things with the safeties to help them out. But yet, no, he's not at that level yet where you should just say, hey, guard David Bell and take him out of the game.
I do know Wisconsin over the weekend, they did double David Bell. And with Purdue's rushing attack and Xander Horvath being hurt, I know looking ahead a little bit, I know that's one thing that I don't know if they'll double David Bell. You may try to give him different looks.
They're gonna double David Bell at some point. Yeah, they better double David Bell.
No, not the entire. I'm saying I don't know if they'll double him the entire time. Wisconsin did, but you could do that because the running game from Purdue is not there. Different with Ohio State because they have so many weapons. You're going to double him, but I don't know how many different looks you're going to throw his way, because if you just give him one thing the entire time, I mean, he could still go for 75 yards, 80 yards, a touchdown, because he'll find the crack at some point and get loose a little bit.
Yeah, I take that back. Maybe they'll double him a little bit, obviously, but I do think Ohio State's just better than everybody in the conference. And so they're going to be able to get away with some things where you might single cover him, but because Zach Harrison's sitting in the quarterback's lap, it doesn't matter. Or because Haskell Garrett blew up the middle of the pocket, it doesn't matter. So I think the talent gap makes up for, instead of maybe if David Bell plays 65 snaps, instead of doubling him, 37 snaps, maybe you only have to do it 17 because the talent around you allows you to do that.
That is true. That is true. What were some things with the running back position? Because I've noticed that sometimes we're seeing only 10 touches, total touches from TreVeyon Henderson. And it seems like 3 of those times and he gets the ball a game, he's going to the end zone. I made a statement saying we don't know how good this offense can be because their best player at running back is not playing consistently. It's kind of, if he gets hit a little bit, we're going to take him out, and Maya Williams, you come in. This offense could score quicker, less plays, and long. We just don't know. They're good, Steven, but I don't know how good this offense is because their best running back doesn't play consistently.
He's not going to play consistently. He's not going to get consistent touches. This is my theory on Ryan Day, and it's kind of been confirmed a little bit. He doesn't do more than he has to win a game. He's not going to unnecessarily give a guy the ball just because we all want to see him be awesome. He's never going to do that. He didn't really do it with J.K. Dobbins in 2019 until the end of the season, where he had to ramp it up against when you played Penn State, Michigan in a Big Ten championship game back to back to back. So then you started seeing 30 carry games. If you look at the games before that, he really wasn't getting the ball that much. And as a freshman in 2017, when he was awesome then as well, he only had 2 games the entire season where he went over 20 carries. And it was the first game against Indiana because they had no other options. And then it was against Wisconsin at the end of the season in the Big Ten championship. It's going to be a similar thing here with TreVeyon Henderson. If he can do what he's doing and only get the ball 10 to 12 times a game, then guess what? He's going to keep getting the ball 10 to 12 times a game. I do think right now on their regular season schedule, Penn State's the only team I think can put them in a position where they feel like they need to go, here, Travion, go win us the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to bet on the game, he has over 20 carries, again, outside of Tulsa, because CJ just – I don't know what that was. They just weren't throwing the ball well. Then they'll do that, and it'll be a Penn State game. Outside of that, I think they can get away with Travion's going to get it 10 to 12 times. He's going to average 7 to 8 yards per carry, and that'll just be it. And then when we get into the Big Ten championship game, probably against Iowa, when you get into a playoff against Georgia or Alabama or Oklahoma or whoever, that's when you'll see it ramp up. But yeah, he's never going to – we have to remember Travion Henderson hasn't played football in a year.
Right.
He didn't play his senior year because Virginia moved their season to the spring. And so you can't ask a freshman to carry the ball 25 times a game for you. You just can't do that. So, listen, I mean, he's been awesome. He came back in the country, and he's not going to get treated like one until they feel like he needs to be treated like one.
That's the craziest thing about him. I knew coming in, he was hyped up. He was going to be good. We were going to see some good play. I wasn't expecting this. And even though the lack of touches that he has, I haven't checked. I don't know how he stacks up against the other top running backs in the country as far as touchdowns. But I do know at one point throughout the season, him and Kenneth Walker III had 9 rushing touchdowns apiece. But Travion Henderson had, I think, at least 50 less carries than Kenneth Walker III. So that just talks about like how good he is. We're all guessing how good he might be if he got those 50 more touches. He's probably going to break Maurice Claret's record in the next couple of games as far as touchdowns as a freshman. I mean, it's lethal. Then the offensive line in front of him, they keep getting better and better and better every single week.
Yeah, Travion, I mean, I expected him to do this. I think everybody in that program did. I will say, we asked Ryan Day that exact question. Are you shocked at how good Travion's been this early, basically? He said, I'm not shocked he's been this good. I'm shocked at how early it was. I mean, the first time he touched the ball, it ran for a touchdown. The second time he touched the ball, it went like 6 yards because they put 7 people in the box. The third time he touched the ball, it went for a 75-yard screen pass touchdown. So it's like, this is – I mean, if you go watch his junior year film at Hopewell High School in Virginia, this is what the type of stuff he was doing. So there's no shock that he's just good. They just thought maybe, okay, now this is when we'll start seeing it midway through the year after he's adjusted. But he's come out of the gate kind of swinging here. And so it's going to be – Baby Saquon is his nickname around the program, by the way. But we'll see. I mean, it looks good now. How does it look 2 years from now when he's a junior and maybe Ohio State's got a first-year starting quarterback again and they really need to lean on him?
CJ Stroud, after that game where he sat out, I think it was the Akron game, he's looked more comfortable. Now, I know the injury and some things early on were kind of hindering him, but he's looked like he's settled down. He's more comfortable, and it seems like the game is slowing down to him to where even when he has to move outside the pocket, his eyes are still downfield. He's a potential running threat, but he's still trying to move the ball down the field with his arm. I don't know what happened. I don't know if you've heard or something about how the game is slowing down to him, but he seems like he's way more comfortable now than he was earlier. I know experience comes from that, but even after that off week, man, he was comfortable. I know I keep saying the word, but comfortable is the only word I can use to describe how he has played since missing that Akron game.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things at play here. One, listen, time. Sometimes you just need time. People, were ready to jump off the bandwagon after his first game. And we have to remember that kid hasn't played football in 2 years because he's a quarterback who didn't play last year. And then you don't get hit in practice. So, you don't get hit. He hadn't been hit in 2 years. So there is just going to be a learning curve that was always going to be here. And I understand it's hard to do that when you're coming off the high that is the Justin Fields experience the last 2 years. So it's one, he's just gaining experience, and you're going to see him gain more confidence week in and week out. But also, the shoulder. I don't think his shoulder's 100% because you just look, man. You don't go from throwing every ball high to just dotting it down the middle of the field.
Right.
Just because you took a week off of practice. That's not what happened there. But whatever that week off did, it's not impacting him in a way where he's messing around with his shoulder after every play, which is fine. But also, I think Kyle McCord got on the field and didn't necessarily light it up. And there's a little bit of confidence that can come from that because if you look at the other, major college football programs around the country, they don't have rooms set up like this where it's, if you're not doing your job, there is a 5-star freshman who's a year younger than you who's waiting to take your job right now and doesn't need a year of learning. DJ Uiagalelei, it took him how many games to get benched? And that's because it got really out of control, and they're 4-3 right now. And the guy they benched him for was never in the plan for him. Tyson Fomachild was never in the plan for him to play down there. Spencer Rattler got benched for a guy who wasn't supposed to be starting this year. This is supposed to be a learning year for him, for Caleb Williams, and then he takes over next year. That's not the case with Kyle McCord. That's not the case with Jack Miller. That won't be the case next year when Quinn Ewers is actually able to play football for them. If you don't play well at Ohio State, you will lose your job. And so when the guy behind you doesn't play that well, there's probably a little bit of confidence that comes into play when you're talking about 19-year-olds. So I think it's a mixture of all of that stuff. But most importantly, it's I'm 6 games into this. I've got the best weapons in the world, and I'm just comfortable out there. And confidence comes with comfortability.
In regards to Quinn Ewers, I haven't seen anything come out. Have they silently announced a red shirt for him?
I mean, they're not going to do that, but I'm just going to tell you right now, there should be no expectation that kid's going to play football this year. He's not even here to play football. He's here because somebody offered him $1 million to say kombucha. And college football players can make money off their name, image, and likeness. He got here a week into fall camp, and then he got hurt. So he didn't have any of that practice time. So I understand it's the cool thing, and everybody wants to see the perfectly rated quarterback come out there, and we're wondering when he's going to take C.J. Stroud's job and pull a Trevor Lawrence or a Tua, but he's not playing football this year. There's no reason for that expectation.
Do you think he may be in the running to compete next year?
I mean, if you'd asked me before the season who was Ohio State starting quarterback in 2022, I'd have told you Quinn. I think that option was always on the table. But also, C.J. Stroud's now probably going to win the Heisman, and Ohio State looks like the second best team in college football. So if he wins the Heisman and Ohio State beats Georgia in the national title, can you really pull it? That's a hard thing.
Right.
I understand, like, Clemson made the playoff, but it was clear Kelly Bryant wasn't the answer. Alabama was playing in the national championship game, but it was clear that Jalen Hurts wasn't the answer. I mean, look, Spencer Rattler was the perceived Heisman Trophy winner and #1 NFL draft pick, but it's very clear he was not the answer. I don't know if CJ's ever going to put himself in a situation where he's not the answer. So that's what you have to bank on as well.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good point. I was looking at some numbers before we got on together, and it was in regards to the stats for Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Chris Olave. And Njigba has 29 catches, Olave 32, and then Garrett Wilson 36. The one thing that stood out to me, not the touchdowns, not the yards per reception, but it's the yards. 605 for Wilson, 551 for Njigba, 518 for Olave. There's a good chance, Steven, that Ohio State might have 3 1,000-yard receivers right now with this team at the end of the year. That's insane. I know how good that we expected these 3 guys to be, but I was not projecting 3 1,000-yard receivers on one team with this offense this year. To me, that blows my mind.
Yep. No, I mean, in all seriousness, though, I think you expected this from Jackson Smith, from Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. They're the 2 best wide receivers in the country. Them having those statistics is like, yeah, okay, cool. What else you got for me there? I think Jackson Smith-Njigba has been kind of a breath of fresh air because they did not use their 3rd receiver last year. And because they did not use their 3rd receiver last year, he is the best receiver on Alabama's roster now, and his name is Jamison Williams. Jackson Smith-Njigba has not only forced his way onto the field, but he's forced C.J. Stroud to make him a real option. And quite frankly, he might be most comfortable throwing the ball to him because if you ranked C.J.'s 3 best throws this year, they're all to him. It's the dot over the middle of the field against Indiana. It's the wheel route against Rutgers. It's another throw earlier in the season, I think in the Oregon game, where he flashed it a little bit as well. I think – listen, I don't know who's better between Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave right now. I think that, Garrett might end up being the better pro of the 2 just because his game is more set up that way. Chris is kind of small. But I think right now, of the 3, who has the highest ceiling, it might be Jackson because, that's an explosive guy who he had 100 receptions his senior year of high school. I understand he played in Texas, but that's a pretty big deal. And then there's a guy named Emeka Egbuka who's going to take a kick return back for a touchdown any day now, who might be the best of the group right now. But that's the key difference there. Jackson Smith-Njigba making himself a factor and forcing Ohio State to use him in the offense in a way that they just kind of ignored Jamison Williams last year.
It's insane, man. Like, I've seen Stroud's progression. We've all seen Stroud's growth throughout the season. But his ability to spread the ball around to those 3 guys in the way that he has, that's been probably the most amazing thing. Then you add the amazing throws, the yards that are there, the average yards per reception, per catch. I'm just not used to this type of spreading the ball around at Ohio State. And then when you add in Jeremy Ruckert, who I think he had, 5 catches over the weekend, I think he should be used more. I mean, you got weapons there that most other teams don't have in college football.
You just said Jeremy Rucker should be used more. That's the thing at Ohio State. There are about 7 people on that list of he should be used more. Jeremy Rucker should be used more. Garrett Wilson should have more than 36 catches.
Yes,
Chris Olave should have more than 32. Jackson Smith-Njigba should probably have more than 29. And the son, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the son of a Hall of Famer, and he was flashing in the second half. This kid's a bench warmer right now.
Yes.
Julian Fleming was the number 1 wide receiver in his recruiting class. He's a bench warmer right now. And Emeka Egbuka, the number 1 wide receiver in his class, a bench warmer right now. I'm getting ready to write a story this week about how, for this Penn State game, how Penn State's starting offense right now is sitting on the bench at Ohio State. And their names are Kyle McCord at quarterback and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Julian Fleming, all of which lived in Pennsylvania, are all bench warming for Ohio State right now. That's just life at Ohio State. That's life at Alabama. That's life at Georgia, where there's a lot of this guy should be getting used more. And so it's going to be interesting. The numbers are going to be the numbers with this offense. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Ryan Day, allows it to evolve on itself week by week. Because Jeremy Rucker wasn't involved a couple of weeks ago. This is new. Jackson Smith-Njigba wasn't involved the first 2 weeks. This is kind of new here. And so this is why we all need to see Ohio State and Georgia get on the field together and see which is better, this offense or that defense.
I've been asking a lot of beat writers this question. I'm going to ask you as we close out this show. Who do you think is the toughest opponent left on Ohio State's schedule? I'm going to give you 3 schools: Penn State, Michigan State, or Michigan.
Am I allowed to say the team that Ohio State plays on Tuesday in practice?
I mean, you can. Yes, absolutely.
In all seriousness, I think it's Michigan. Penn State's banged up, and Sean Clifford just doesn't look right. And so it doesn't matter how good Jahan Dotson and how good this defense might be. That's just not enough. Michigan State, I understand somebody at the Detroit Free Press wrote a story saying about Michigan State's wide receiver coach, meet the man in charge of the best wide receiver room in the country. That's just not true at all. And Kenneth Walker is good as well, but Michigan State hasn't played anybody. So I don't know how real anything that they're doing right now is. That's the problem. And with Ohio State, I understand they haven't played anybody since Oregon either, but they're Ohio State. Okay, it's a different level here that we're talking about. I think Michigan is interesting because right now they're one-dimensional. They're all about the run, led by Blake Corum. What happens is if at some point Jim Harbaugh looks at his bench and he goes, Cade McNamara is not going to beat Ohio State. J.J. McCarthy has to play. If that happens, then it gets interesting because you have a team who has clearly been able to establish a run with now a 5-star quarterback who has flashed some things that time. So that's why I say Michigan, because sometimes it's better to pick it's why the backup quarterback's the most famous guy on any football team, because you don't know any better. And with Michigan, with J.J. McCarthy, no one knows anybody better because we don't know what it looks like. So I'll stick with that.
Steven, this has been fun, man. Once again, having you back on the show. If you could, let everyone know where they can catch you on Twitter, read your articles, and then mention the text thread that you, Nathan, and Doug have going on for all Buckeye fans.
Yeah, first of all, you can follow me on Twitter at Steven_means. It's literally just my first and last name. I'm not that creative of a person. You can read me at cleveland.com/OSU or BuckeyeTalk.com. Both of those work. Or you can listen to our Buckeye Talk podcast wherever you get podcasts. But also, yeah, man, sign up for the text, 614-350-3315. That is 614-350-3315, where you can get all types of fun stuff like me talking about this type of stuff and recruiting information and analysis from myself, Doug Maurice, and Nathan Baird, and anything else you love. We even talk about a little bit of nonsense in there. So, yeah, sign up for that.
Nate, I don't know why I said Nathan. I had Nathan on a couple weeks ago. Steven, this has been fun. You guys can always follow me on Twitter at JStevens07. We will be here all week long, gearing up and getting you ready for the Ohio State game this weekend in the shoe where the Nittany Lions come to town. I think it might be another game where Ohio State covers a spread, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes Saturday night.